I want to take a moment to talk about sales failure. Why a lot of salespeople fail to sell. Why they fail to hit their number. The first one is that they think it's a price. Most salespeople think the reason customers don't buy, it's because it's all about price. I'm telling you right now, study after study has shown that there are some people who will basically not buy on price, but that's a very small percentage compared to the number of people who will actually buy because it isn't about the price. Here's something I want you to have in your head, a mental model. 20% of people won't buy because of price. This 20% will say, screw that, I'm not going to buy. The other 20% will say, you know what, I don't care what the price is, I want that. Okay, these are people who will buy, it doesn't even matter the price, they just want the item. So you got 20% who will buy automatically, 20% who will never buy because of price, and right in the middle you have a giant 60%. These are people who are waiting for you to convince them that there's value in what they're going to pay for. In other words, it's not about price, but you need to sell them on value. Too often we think that it's about price. We judge people walking in and we think maybe they can't afford what we have to offer. Well, consider the following, that if you have a luxury watch or boutique store and somebody walks in, how did they find you? We talked about that already. You got to ask the question, how did they find you? Now, the fact that they've looked at 10 sources of information before they probably arrived at your boutique or retail store means that they already know. They already know what the items cost. They know how expensive it is. In other words, they're not walking in there and going, what do things cost? They already have an idea. Now, why is this an advantage? Because if somebody has researched your company, your watch store on the internet, they understand pricing. And because they understand pricing and they still visit your boutique store, they basically pre-qualified themselves. In other words, if they couldn't afford it, they wouldn't go to your store. They've seen the information, says, I can't afford that, I'm not going there. But the people that are showing up basically know what your price average is, and they actually showed up at the store, which means they've pre-qualified themselves. What does that mean? Is that your average conversion rate should be high, that it's not about price. But too often when somebody walks in the door, we make the immediate assumption that they're going to push back on price, especially if they're not dressed to the nines. Right? If they're not dressed to the nines, they got the nice tie, the nice suit, the nice dress, guess what? We think maybe they can't afford it. And that's where your perception could really be undermining your sales success. And that's why you're getting sales failure. That's why it results in sales failure. What I want you to start thinking about now is that too often we judge people when they walk through the door because they're dressed too casual, they got gym shoes, they got flip-flops, they got a t-shirt on, a baseball cap, and they can't afford it. We say to ourselves. In psychology, that's called the fundamental attribution error. What is that? We attribute something to somebody that isn't real. In other words, the fundamental attribution error is that we see somebody come in with t-shirts, shorts, flip-flops, and a baseball cap, and we think that they simply can't afford what we have to offer. And when that happens, as soon as we prejudge them walking through the door, we basically don't sell as aggressively or as persuasively because we're thinking they're not going to buy, I'm just wasting my time. In many cases, I've seen people ignore me when I walked in with shorts and t-shirts and flip-flops because they're thinking in their mind, he can't afford it. So don't make that mistake. One, it isn't about price typically. These people have pre-qualified themselves before they walk into your shop. They know it's a high-end boutique store. They know it's a high-end watch place. They've already pre-qualified themselves because they've looked at the information online, which means that they still walk through that door, which means they know what they're going to have to pay. But if you make the mistake of your perception being wrong, attributing a fundamental attribution error, in other words, based on how they're dressed, you're going to hesitate in how you sell. I've seen this happen many times. There's one guy that has a nice suit, got the business, got the pinky ring, the whole everything, the jewelry, and people want to sell to him. And then there's the other guy over here that's just dressed again in flip-flops or just a basic casual dress if it's a female, and we just ignore them because we think they can't afford it. That is a mistake you can be making. Realize that the bottom line is that when somebody walks into a high-end luxury watch boutique, they've already researched, as I've said, information online. They know what the cost is, and they're walking through that door pre-qualified already, which means they most likely can't afford it, which means your close rate, your conversion rate should be high. If it's not, there's something wrong with your sales process. And on that note, let's go to the next video because I want to start getting into my 3-step sales process that you're going to be able to use to close more sales at your boutique. Okay? Here we go.